What is up, guys? Delboy here. So, an interesting fight coming out of the heavyweight division on the 6th of April between veteran Mariusz Wach and once beaten prospect Martin Bakole. I've got to say, I am actually looking forward to this fight. Does the fight have much impact on the heavyweight division? No, but I do believe it's an evenly matched fight and one that could go either way. Basically, you can argue this fight is a crossroads fight because Mariusz Wach is nearing 40 years old. He's coming off back-to-back defeats to Jarrell Miller and Arthur Spilker, whereas Martin Bakole was a hyped prospect at one stage, but he's coming off a knockout loss to Michael Hunter, who come up from cruiserweight, and if he lost to this version of Mariusz Wach, you can't really see Bakole going much further. So the fight does have something riding on it, and it does have consequence for the loser, especially if they have ambition. Like I said, a defeat for either one of these guys would be detrimental. So I do like the fact this fight has something riding on it. Also, both guys are coming off losses, both guys should have something to prove, and stylistically I think this fight should be quite interesting. Both guys are very big heavyweights. Mariusz Wach is listed as 6'7.5", whereas Martin Bakole is listed as 6'6". So they are both big lumps, and both guys in the past haven't really shown the greatest defensive skills. Both guys are fairly flat-footed, both guys are fairly slow, and you know, they are there to be hit. Neither one of these guys are defensive geniuses, but I will say this, I do believe Mariusz Wach is actually the better back foot boxer of the two. I mean, go back and watch the Erkan fight. Mariusz Wach did actually use a decent jab that fight. He used some okay movement, and he outboxed Erkan. I've not really seen Martin Bakole do that. Martin Bakole, from what I've seen, has kind of been a bit of a swinger, a big puncher. He relies on his strength, his power, and his aggression to get him through fights. And that was actually his undoing against a better boxer in Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter made Bakole miss, he made him pay, and he stopped him late on in that fight. He just exhausted Bakole. Bakole in that fight just, you know, he blew his load. He threw far too many punches trying to knock out Michael Hunter, and he depleted his gas tank. And Michael Hunter exploited it and took advantage of it. And in that fight, Michael Hunter kind of exposed Bakole's lack of ring IQ and lack of ring maturity. So he needs to have improved on that going into this fight, because one thing about Mariusz Wach is extremely durable. Vladimir Klitschko couldn't get this guy out of there. It took Povetkin 12 rounds to get this guy out of there, and that was only because of a facial injury. It also took Jarrell Miller 9 rounds to stop Mariusz Wach, but I believe that fight was stopped because of an injury. Mariusz Wach is extremely hard to hurt with headshots. He really has got a granite chin, so if you're Bakole, especially based on his last fight against Michael Hunter, he can't afford to be swinging for the fences trying to blast Mariusz Wach out of there, because if it doesn't work and Mariusz Wach is still there after a few rounds, what happens down the stretch? Mariusz Wach, you know, he can fight 12 rounds, he can fight 10 rounds, that's fine for him. He's done it in the past, whereas Bakole has shown a bad gas tank. You know, if this fight goes down the stretch and, you know, it's competitive, you may favour Mariusz Wach. So, Bakole, he's the younger, fresher, quicker guy. He's got a lot more in the tank, and he's taken a lot less punishment throughout his career. So for me, Bakole needs to remain calm and composed in this fight, pick his spots and conserve energy. He needs to try and beat Mariusz Wach to the punch, make him miss, make him pay, try to make Mariusz Wach gun shy, because that has happened in the past. It happened in the fight with Vladimir Klitschko. It even happened in the Povetkin and Miller fights. I think you can put Mariusz Wach in his place if you connect with some good shots. I think Bakole, he needs to do that early, land some good hard shots, put Mariusz Wach in his place, make him aware of what's coming back, stay composed, stay calm, and just try and fight round by round and maintain composure and win the fight that way. Also, Bakole, I've seen him work the body in previous fights. That's one thing I noticed him struggle with against Jarrell Miller. That could be another avenue of success for Martin Bakole, but he just needs to fight a lot smarter in this fight. He needs to make the most of his youth. He needs to make the most of his superior speed and punching power. If he does that while remaining composed and economic with his work, then he should win this fight in my opinion. I believe he has more in the tank than Mariusz Wach. However, you know, Martin Bakole, defensively he is open. Like I said in the past, he has shown really bad ring IQ. So if I'm Mariusz Wach, I want to be using my size, my strength, my greater experience and trying to force my will on Martin Bakole. Make it a rough, tough fight and bring Martin Bakole somewhere he doesn't want to be. Because in that fight with Michael Hunter, you know, it looked to me like Martin Bakole was looking for a way out in between rounds as that fight went on. So maybe Mariusz Wach could bring that out in Martin Bakole. So I think the key for Mariusz Wach is just to make it a really tough fight. Try and expend as much energy from Bakole as you can. Let go of that right hand with regularity, because Mariusz Wach, he only has a 46% knockout ratio, but he does have some good power in that right hand. You just have to go back to that knockout against Christian Hammer early in his career. He does carry power. He's a big man. So I want to see Mariusz fight aggressively in this fight. I want to see him try to put it on Bakole. And if Bakole tries to blast him out of there, like I said, and Mariusz Wach is still in there, he really needs to put it on Bakole down the stretch, because if he does, he can get the stoppage in my opinion. The downside for Mariusz Wach is the fact that this fight is a 10-rounder, so he doesn't have the full 12 rounds to do it. I know the Michael Hunter fight was also a 10-rounder, and Hunter managed to gas out Bakole, but Michael Hunter and Mariusz Wach are two completely different fighters. Michael Hunter is a far better boxer, he's a far better technician, and all in all, he just fights with a more high-octane style. So I think naturally that style was always going to gas out Bakole quicker. Mariusz Wach, you know, he's a bit slower, he's tall, he's lumbering. He needs to do it in a different way. He needs to impose himself on Bakole, whereas Hunter had to make Bakole miss badly and make him pay. So yeah, despite Michael Hunter doing it in 10 rounds, it doesn't mean Mariusz Wach can. I think it's a negative that this fight is only a 10-rounder for Mariusz Wach. But on the flip side, this fight is in Poland, so if this fight is close, you would imagine they will favour the hometown man in Mariusz Wach. I've got to say, I know this fight doesn't have any consequence to the heavyweight division, but I do like this fight. And at one point, like I said, Bakole was seen as a high-level prospect. He was one of the most talked about prospects in the heavyweight division for some time. But he's coming off a loss now, and this is a tough fight to come back to. It really is. When your confidence might not be quite where it was, you know, when you've been exposed for having a bad gas tank. Is this the fight you want to go into away from home against a tough, big, durable guy who's got experience? I think it's a risky fight for Bakole, and credit to him for taking it, to be quite honest. I really like this fight. I am leaning towards Martin Bakole, I've got to say, probably by decision, but I'm not really confident in that pick. I think it's a really good fight. I'm leaning towards a Bakole decision, but yeah, share your thoughts below. Peace.